So this diagram is just to get our mindsets into three distinct groups who we might refer to today. Okay, so in the middle, we've got our core. So our core is the people who are regular attenders at our church, more than likely going to be Christians, and who support and lead some of the ministries that we do. We're going to be thinking about how we can point them to Jesus this Christmas. Now, you might think, well, hopefully they'll already be thinking about Jesus this Christmas. But as I said before, Christmas is a very busy time of the year in a church calendar. Sometimes we get so caught up in all of our doing and planning and implementing of events that we don't actually, as Christians, take the time to step back and to think and to really focus on Jesus ourselves. So one of the things that we want to encourage you and your churches to do is to make sure that in the things that you're planning, you do think about your Christians, your core of your churches. And so we'll be thinking about that group. Then we want to think the kind of next ring out is the congregation. So the people in your church who they do come along, they may be Christians, but actually sometimes you're not really sure if they are Christians. They may attend sporadically, they may be linked in through a kids group or a toddler group, but we're going to class that as our congregation. So people who are linked into the church. And then on the outer ring, we've got the community. So the people who may never step foot into your building, they may have no links directly to your events or the things that you put on. So they're kind of on the outer ring, but we still want to reach out to them this Christmas with the gospel in any ways that we can. So we've got these distinct groups, and we need to be thinking, how for each of those groups are we going to be sharing the gospel this Christmas? So we're going to start off with children's. So this is going to cover all of those three rings in some respects, because trying to keep all the children's material together is quite helpful. So we've got some ideas. Now, some of these you may have heard before, some of them you may be familiar with or maybe not. So I'm just going to run through them quickly. Over COVID and over the past couple of years, people started to try and plan events that were outdoors, outside of the church, where people can be invited along to come and experience a kind of activity trail. Some people did Advent windows, so people in their churches decorated their windows and sent out a list of places that you could go and view the windows, with the idea that there was a gospel message or an opportunity at the end of the trail to give out a resource or an invitation to a service or some way of keeping contact with those families that took part. Other churches have done live nativities. So whether that is indoors or outdoors, some are able to get in live animals as well as live actors. But you don't have to go quite so far if you don't think that your church is quite, resourced to that level. Maybe you don't live near live animals, but other churches do have those resources available to them. So a live nativity where you have actors who are going to act out key parts of the nativity story is a great way to really bring to life the nativity story to people. And again, you don't have to have a cast of thousands. You can have, as little as 10 people who are committed to be there for a set time to talk through a part of the nativity story. And it's a really great way. You could invite local schools along if your volunteers are able to do it during the daytimes in school time, or it could happen at a weekend. So again, something maybe you've not thought about before, but it's just something a little bit different from our standard events. Thinking about school PTA, parent-teacher associations, often at this time of year, they're planning events. They might be planning a Christmas fair. They might be planning to have kind of a big event where they give away things or have prizes for children. Is there any way that your church could have a stall at their Christmas fair? So you could take along free resources that you can give out, or you could run competitions. So there's ways of thinking slightly outside of the box, so beyond the boundaries of our own churches. The school PTA, I have no doubt, will be thrilled if you wanted to donate them some resources. So to donate them some books to give out to their reception, or maybe some prizes for some of the things that they're running, or even donate some books for their library. Often schools are under-resourced and they're happy to accept anything that we're able to offer them. And your church don't have to have a direct link to the school. It doesn't have to be a church school that's linked to your church. If you have a good relationship with your community, or you have parents with children at those schools, it's a great opportunity to engage with them and to build that relationship. Linked to that is a school assembly. Could somebody from your church offer to go in and to tell the Christmas story to the children? That way, you know that the children are going to hear a clear gospel message of the true nativity. Again, schools are often more than willing to have somebody come in. It may mean that you need to have some kind of checks done, like a DBS check. But even so, if you start planning now, send an email or drop into the school, it's something that a lot of schools would be quite happy to have happen. And so if you've not done that before, it's an idea to be thinking about. Christmas parties is more kind of inside your church. So if you have a primary age group or a secondary age group that is running, are you going to have a Christmas party for them? What are you thinking that you're going to give them at that Christmas party? Is it a selection box? Or could it be that alongside some chocolate or some sweets, you give them a small booklet or a children's book, which explains the real meaning of Christmas? There are all these opportunities that we can have to be sharing the gospel with our families and children. And so often we just need to be given extra thoughts and ideas. So at this point, I'm going to ask Caroline Taylor to unmute. So Caroline, tell us where you're from and what you do, Caroline.
So I'm from Bridgend and I work for Lichfield Mission Church in Bridgend. Yeah, and we're quite a kind of medium-sized to small-sized church in the town.
And Caroline, what is your job there at Lichfield Church?
Oh yeah, I'm the youth and families worker.
Okay, and would you be able to share with us what you're planning in the coming months for how you're going to be reaching out to children and families in your area?
Yeah, so it's a mix of kind of what we did over COVID and adapting it and make it new. So we did a nativity trail over COVID. That was something where there was a poster outside different people's houses and they went around and looked for the poster, and it finished at the church where they could, outside there was a bookstall and they could come and have a book and have a present as well, which was also a book. And this year we're going to adapt that so that instead of going around people's houses, it's going to be centered around the church, and then they'll finish in the church with some hot chocolates and some craft to do and the bookstall, and they'll all get a present again, which will again be a book. And then we're going to have our Christmas parties that we have at the end of each year. So we have our toddler group, and we'll probably get 2 sets of books, one for kind of the younger age range and then the ones who are kind of almost going off to nursery age. And then we'll get a book for the caregivers as well, because we have quite a few caregivers, but a lot of childminders as well, who won't come to any of the children's events with the same kids because they won't have those kids after school hours. So we like to give them a book and an invitation to an adult event as well. So we'll give out those. And then we have our primary school party, which is for our primary school age group, and they'll all get given a book. But what we normally do with them is have a table of books, and then they can kind of take it in turns going round and round picking a book until nearly all of the books are gone. So they can go home with plenty of books and other prizes. And then our youth group, they'll get given a selection box, probably with a tract inside it, because they walk to our youth group and they walk home. So if we kind of give them anything bulky, they'll probably leave it in the car park. So we'll give them something small and something that they can eat, and that will probably mean it gets home with them as well. And what else are we going to do? Advent. Our church likes to read an Advent book together, and junior church do the same thing with their families. So we'll pick a family devotional for Advent, and I'll make a kind of big poster for it to help them track the different events. And normally it has like a craft or something that they can do each day, so that what could be kind of something that you do in the morning, and then in the evening you can do the craft aspect of it, or at the end of the week you can do all the craft aspects of it to kind of keep bringing it up in the children's mind as well as the whole family's. And then this year we're doing something new, which is we're going to use the Bake Your Way Through the Bible Christmas book to put on a baking event for the families of the toddler group and the primary school group. So they can come with their older and younger siblings, they can come with their caregivers, and the idea is it's going to be an event where they do lots of baking, but the whole family hears about the true meaning of Christmas at the same time, rather than children get left and parents go away and don't hear it. This time they're all together and they'll hear it from within their family unit and then take it home together as well. And they'll probably be given a book to take home again then as well. Yeah, I think that's what we've got planned for the children specifically. But then we have like our normal carol services where we always have books out for the adults to take. And what we've done since COVID is have little activity bags kind of ready to go. So with like some colouring in, some crayons, and maybe a couple of chocolates and some bubbles normally. And we have those, so if any children come to those events where we don't normally expect children to come, they can have this book, and they can, if they're younger, they can colour in it during the service. But if they're older, they can have it to take home with them as well.
I love that you said this is all we're doing. That was quite a substantial list there, Caroline.
Yeah, as I was saying it started to seem like more, and now I'm slightly nervous about Christmas.
Well, don't be nervous. You sound like you've got it all planned, and in your mind you've got it all set out. And I think that's the thing, because we are mid-October now, and it's the time when people are starting to think about what are the practical things that need to happen to make these events take place, and what do we need to order in, and how's that going to work. So it is good to think through and to make a list of things like that. So hopefully for people who are listening, they were as you were talking then thinking, oh yeah, we've got a toddler group and we've got a primary age group, and how might we be using resources for those things. So I'm just going to chat through some resources. So Caroline mentioned the idea of Advent. So using Advent with your church families. So we have available Advent calendars. So they're kind of like an A4 card Advent calendar. They don't have chocolates in them, unfortunately. But behind each door, there is a part of the true Christmas story and a picture for children to open up. So it could be that you want to encourage your families to have an Advent calendar like this. They can have like a bowl of sweets at the side of them where they take a sweet as well, so they don't feel like they'll be missing out on their chocolate or whatever. And you can tailor it to your favorite chocolates even. In terms of what Caroline said about the families doing devotions together, so this in the middle daily devotions called Tracing Glory, we released the small kind of red book last year, and it's a devotion that goes from creation right through to Christ, and it tells how you can trace glory throughout the Bible to Jesus. And we had some really great responses to that last year, and so this year we've brought out it's an activity book, and inside of it, I know you won't be able to see my screen, very, very large, but there are full colour instructions to make an ornament for each day of Advent that can be put onto your Christmas tree that relates to each of the devotions. So, we go through the whole Bible, and there's craft activities. Now, this is great if you don't have to do it all in one go, as in you don't have to do one each day, because I think for some families that's a bit overwhelming to try and do a craft every day. But you could wait until the weekend, or you could pick out the ones that you thought, I think we'd be able to manage that. So this is great, especially for any primary age children. It's really great. And actually, if you run a toddler group, you might think, actually, that would be great to have all of those ornaments that we could do one every other week throughout the year, or one a week for part of the year as our craft, and build up a bank of these little ornaments for Christmas in advance. So this book is great. And yeah, so you get the full colour instructions and the templates, which is really handy. So that's for like families and primary age. Candles. I'll be honest, up until a couple of years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I'd never used an Advent candle. I come from a Baptist background, and it wasn't something that I'd grown up with, but I saw these and I thought, you know what, I think that would be a great idea. So on the Advent candles, you've got 25 names for Jesus. So, you know, the door, the way, the truth, Savior. And every day when you burn down your Advent candle, you talk through one of those things. And I've personally found it really helpful to have one of those on our dining table every day. It's a reminder to light the candle and talk through those things. So perhaps either individually, or you can encourage your church family to maybe have a look at getting some Advent candles. And then over on the right of your screen, the daily craft is, so there's a book called Unexpected Gift. It's a short children's storybook, and every page, so it's not like a devotion, it is a storybook, but every page there is a linked craft activity. And this is slightly different in that it is a cardboard printed book, and you cut directly from the book. So when you get the book, you have what you need inside of it. You're obviously going to need some pens and glue and crayons, etc. But the activities you cut straight from the book. So you don't need to have anything other than a few pens and scissors for that. So that's a great one as well, which you could be encouraging your families with. Okay, in terms of giveaway, so if you're giving away to your toddler group or to your primary group, or if you want prizes for an Advent trail, etc., we do books from £1 a copy. So standardly, you buy 50 copies for £50. Okay, and that covers your postage and everything. And you choose one book to have. Now, this year, we know that some people don't have 50 children that they're going to be reaching out to. If you've got a smaller church, maybe 50 sounds like a lot. So we've also done a separate thing where you can buy 20 for £30. So if you only think you're going to need 20, then you can get those for £30. Or it does also mean you can mix and match. So some of them, so along the bottom of the screen, we've got the smaller, the kind of smaller size. I should have brought one about this size. And then the ones above it are slightly larger. So you might want to buy some of the smaller ones and some of the larger ones so that you've got a bit of a variety, especially if you've got siblings and you think they don't really want to be taking the same book away. So you can buy them either in a pack of 50 for 50 or 20 for £30. So we've got a large selection of books available to meet all different needs, different ages as well. If you go on our website and you find the products, you can download a sample of any of these children's books so you can see what they are like inside. We also have board books. So again, if you're really thinking about that lower end, either of your own church creche, or if you're thinking about your toddler group, these are really for the babies, the board books. And so these are from £2. The Christmas first word book is new this year, so you may not have seen that one before, and you can be sure that your children haven't been given that one before if you give these out regularly. Again, activity books. So we've talked about the Unexpected Gift and Tracing Glory. We also have a nativity activities book, which is targeted at junior age children. So that's kind of like 8 to 11. So that's got dot to dots, mazes, word searches, etc. So again, there's a variety of things. It doesn't have to just be a storybook, because some children won't necessarily sit down and read a storybook, but they might want to do some activities. So all contain the gospel. There's a clear gospel message in each of them, and the gospel is explained. So this would be another option for some of your gifts or prizes. Just to say that also we have a great relationship with Go Chatter. If you haven't heard of it, they are a resource bank of videos that you can use during your services and events. And for the last 2 years, they've put together resources specifically for the King and the Shepherd Boy, which is one of the books that we recommend, and the Nativity. And you can buy a bundle of resources so that you can host a service. Maybe it's your family Christmas service, and you can get a video to share of the book, and you can get some social media and some invites, and you buy a little bundle of things, which will save you obviously a lot of time, and it means that you can tie together the theming of your service if you'd like to. So currently those are the 2 books that you can do that for. But if you've never been to Go Chatter, go and have a look. They've got some amazing resources for your services throughout the year. They've got a great Halloween selection as well if you're looking to reach out this Halloween. Now, Caroline mentioned having a kind of activity trail with posters. So these are really we've got a real discount on these. They used to be £4, they're now just 49p each. They're A3 size, so they're a good size on your window. And again, they can tie into the trail that you're doing, or actually you could just encourage the people in your church to have one in their window, so that the people who live around your congregation can see that for them Christmas is more than just presents and Santa Claus. So we would encourage you, if you want to, just pop a couple in your orders. They will be folded in half to A4 when you get them, but this is the idea, that you put them in your window. You might have an activity trail, and that people can follow along, and or even just see people who are sharing the gospel this Christmas. I'm going to hand over now to Tim. Tim's going to talk to us about the church and ideas for how we reach our adults in the church. So I'm going to hand over to Tim.
Thanks, Bethan. It's Christmas is a great opportunity to get our church families reading and thinking. Advent in the run-up to Christmas is particularly good, whether that's you just have a book on a table at the back of your church that you say, this is the book that we want to read this Christmas, this Advent, but you may want to kind of big that up a little bit and kind of adapt that. So whether that's doing an Advent reading group where you actually physically kind of draw people together and say, let's discuss what we've been reading this week, or whether that's something more like a digital kind of WhatsApp message group or Facebook Messenger group that people can kind of share the encouragements that they've seen in what they've been reading for the last little while. It's a great opportunity to kind of build one another up and just build that culture of reading books together as Christians, which is such a valuable thing. You may, I think the next slide is some of the Advent books that we have available. You'll have seen some of these from years past, Tim Chester's and Robin Ham's, both excellent, and Tom Parsons. The new one for this year is J.C. Ryle. Now, we haven't gone and dug up J.C. Ryle and got him to physically write us a book. It's drawn from his daily readings, but it's so well done. It's slightly modernized, and it points not just back to Jesus as the child, but points forward to Jesus coming as the future king. And so you're getting both sides of Advent, which is just brilliant and would be well worth looking at as a church family. There's another thing that you could do is something along the lines of Christmas craft events with a gospel message. Draw your church family together and maybe make it a little bit outreachy, something that you could bring kind of folks in from the fringes of your church, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a full-on outreach event. Another great opportunity is something like gift books for the fellowship. Give something away to each family. Give something away to each member, just to encourage them. Here's something that we think that you'll enjoy as a group, or something personalized if you can do that. One last idea then, it would be great to actually gather people to eat. Christmas, there's so much on in terms of church parties, Christmas parties and things going on. Why not do that as a church? Whether that's going out to local Witherspoons or Carvery, or whether that's, getting everyone into a house and doing it by small groups and having kind of meals in the run up to Advent, a great opportunity to gather people together. And whether or not in that setup you have a shared message, or whether it's just a chance for kind of fellowship building and stirring on of each other, it would be a great chance to do something like that. You've seen our Advent books. I've already said that. There is a great book called The Four Emotions of Christmas. It's written by a guy called Bob. I always call him Lapine, but I'm pretty sure that's not how you actually say the name. He has a great explanation of how to use his book, how he's going to use his book, and I think we have a short video of that for about a minute here.
I'm a local church pastor, so in our congregation, I'm excited about the opportunity that we have as a church for every person in the church to begin, first of all, thinking about making a list of 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 people you know who don't go to church regularly, folks that you could reach out to during the Christmas season, give them a plate of cookies or a jar of homemade hot chocolate mix or some gift that you could give them, along with a copy of the Four Emotions of Christmas, and maybe an invitation to your church's Christmas pageant or Christmas Eve service. And in our church, if everybody did that, we'd have hundreds or thousands of gospel outreaches happening through the members of our church, just using this book as a tool to awaken the conversation with their friends and neighbors.
Yeah, so there are some great ideas. Buy some of our evangelistic outreach books. So you'll see on the screen there's Four Emotions. That's the new one for this year. It's a really interesting book because it not only provides a clear, short gospel presentation, but it also deals with what people are feeling over the Christmas period, whether that's looking forward to the hype and then being let down, whether that's looking forward to kind of the romance of the season, but it not quite working out. And so I think a lot of non-Christians will actually read it and be drawn in quite strongly by what Bob brings through it. And of course, then bringing the gospel message alongside. You can get it as an ebook as well, and we can do a thing where if you're buying a bunch of them for your church to give out, but you want a digital option, we can create a QR code that folks who maybe join your services or come along and see it, they can scan the QR code and get a digital version of the book for free themselves as well. There's a resource pack to go alongside the Four Emotions as well. So maybe if you want to use the theme of the Four Emotions of Christmas for talks or for maybe a short series in the run up to Christmas, Bethan's put together this incredible set of resources that you can use. So do get in touch and have a look at that. I think it can be downloaded from our website, in fact. So that's all there as well. And perhaps the Four Emotions isn't the right fit for your area. There's a whole range of evangelistic books. Many of you will have seen them many times before, but there's lots of variety there if you're looking for something like that. They're all available from £1 if you're buying a bundle of them to give away, and we'd love to encourage you to do that. One last thing before I hand over to Andy for a short minute is another thing that can be done at Christmas time is giving out gift books. Here you'll see a range of evangelistic books that encourage evangelism. These would be great to give out to your church family. Maybe a book per family, as I said earlier on, or a book per person, hand selected, something like Before You Share Your Faith, which is a great short presentation of what people should be thinking about as they go out and talk to their friends and neighbors, or something like Roger's Evangelistic Living, kind of giving people a basis for how to evangelize day by day and live in an evangelistic way. Or something maybe more Christian living-y. There's a whole range of books that you can get hold of very inexpensively, but that would encourage your folk to read and to be built up and encouraged. I'm gonna ask Andy at this moment if he would chip in. Andy, you're a church leader, and it'd be great to hear what have you been doing in your church family? How have you been encouraging people to share and to witness over the Christmas period?
Well, I guess, one of the key things I've learned when I've been doing ministry is basically you have to understand your context. So I was involved in planting a church plant onto a big housing estate in central London. It's very multicultural. It's the folk religions locally are basically Catholic or Muslim, and it is otherwise a very secular place. It's very non-traditional. So, I've had lots of like brilliant evangelistic ideas that just don't fly, because you think, oh, this should work, but actually it doesn't, and so you have to adjust. So I remember as you would expect at Christmas, if you're a pastor, what do? You set up carol services. They don't fly where we are. They don't work because people want to access a church. They probably go to a Catholic church. Our building is very non-traditional. It's on the first floor above a dry cleaners. So it's not where someone wants to come for a bit of kind of Christmas tradition. So we've kind of had to work out what works in our context, and I guess for all of us on this call, I mean, your context is probably not my context, but actually the key thing is working out what works where you are, I think, rather than trying to put in a kind of prefabricated model. And also I've learned over time to, I need to have the humility to back off on things that don't work. So for example, what we did in our church, we ran a gym for lots of years. We've had to shut it down at the moment because of health and safety stuff, but we ran a gym. And so what we would do with the guys from the gym, we'd basically run a Christmas dinner, and then we would just preach the gospel to them. And we'd get a whole load of guys because there was gym and there was food, and they were willing to come to that. And that works really well. We have found that sometimes some written resources work, what can work, and some don't, because the kind of context we're working is not that people aren't bright, but they don't tend to read very much naturally. And so we've used videos, we've used multimedia resources a bit, and we've used family stuff a lot because you kind of fly under the radar. So we won't the carol services don't work so much, but nativity service works really well, and you get the kids to act it out, and it's all very unprofessional and a bit mad, but actually it really engages people. And so we've used the kind of family stuff, the nativity, messy church, as a kind of bridge into kind of reaching people. And I guess what we have seen over time is that, and I guess people have different contexts, but for us, it's very much an organic part of what we're doing the whole year round. So it's not like a separate thing. That actually, if it does work, it has to work in the context of kind of ongoing relationships and connections. We're a small church. We don't have lots of evangelists to send out, but we have people who are faithful, who want to invite people in. And so we've found like if we have those kind of those relationships, that engagement in the community already, then actually some of that stuff works really, really well. And actually, I've got mates who are leading very big churches, they get hundreds of people along to a carol service, but actually post-Christmas, there's not much to show for that. And though it is a great opportunity to, preach the gospel and to share the good news, actually, the reality is that those kind of connections and relationships over the long haul is what really builds the church. So that's kind of been my focus, really. Not, I guess we've covered it more thinking, not so much about running a series of events, but how can we build the church, and how can Christmas fit into that overall strategy of trying to build the local church and reach people.
Thanks, Andy. That's incredibly helpful. And you're right. Not everything fits for every setup, and it's very helpful to remember that in the run up as we plan our Christmas outreaches. I'm going to hand back to Bethan, who's going to talk about some of the community outreach ideas. Bethan's great at thinking this stuff through, so I'll hand over to her for a little while.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, so we're just going to think about stuff. So this community group, is people who, as I said at the beginning, wouldn't necessarily come into your building, but ideas for ways that you can reach out into the community and to share the gospel with them. And as Andy said, be making relationships with people. It could be that it's the first opportunity that they have to speak to somebody from your church or a Christian in general. So it's good to do these events where we can, and in the context that we've got. Again, like Andy said, we've all got different contexts, some big churches, some small churches, some are in traditional buildings, some are in less traditional buildings. some people from our church have been running for a number of years, where they have been going out to truckers, to a local service station on a motorway, and giving out on either Christmas Eve or sometimes even other days, a little gift bag with things that truckers would like. So some defrost spray, or some gloves, or, you know, a Snickers, or a bottle of water, just little gifts to bless the truckers as they are doing what is a key job in our society. And obviously in there, put either a gospel or a book or a tract or something which will point them to Jesus. And again, just thank them for the work they're doing. This leads on to the key worker thank yous. So over COVID, we have all become more aware of who we consider our key workers to be, not just the people who are serving in our hospitals, but our teachers and the people who are in retail, who literally are every day of the week often trying to serve us in our food shops or in our other shops. And so could, as a church, you write some cards or get some small kind of treats and a tract to give out to the key workers in your local area? It could be that you focus right in on the shops surrounding your immediate church area, or it could be that you go a little bit wider, maybe if you're in a bit more rural location, and you handpick some places that you are going to go in and say thank you for the work that you do, and here's something to go with that. Always thinking about how we can point them to Jesus as well. Care home cards is something that Roger suggested a few years ago to me. It'd never even been on my radar, but when he said it, I thought, do you know what, that's such a great idea. Getting a card, putting a tract in and sending it into the care homes. We just asked the local care homes for the first names of the residents, and they were quite happy to provide that. And we had a little team of people in church who took a pack of cards and hand wrote them to those people, and then we sent them in. Again, it's just, if Roger had never mentioned that, it would never have come into my head. But there may be other people in your local area that you think you could do something similar with. Light switch-ons. If your community has a light switch on, could you go out with some hot chocolate or mince pies? And again, invites to your services, tracts, resources, things that will actually point them to Jesus, and build a relationship. Make them aware of your church and your community, and that, you know, you are approachable and that you do want to be a part of the wider community. Carol singing, not just in your church. Some churches go out onto the high streets. Some actually tour around the actual streets singing as a group, not asking for money, giving back. Giving and saying, we want to bless you by our singing. Here's an invite to our services. Here's an invite to our events that happen all year round. Here's a tract, here's a mince pie. Giving back into the community, and again, making your presence known. Maybe we talked before about maybe a school PTA having a Christmas market or a Christmas fair. But if there's a Christmas market going on near you, could you set up a stall, have free resources available to take away? And again, just making yourselves known in your community. I want to talk about family and friends as well, because it's not just as a church, but personally, how we reach out. And so we're going to talk about some resources that we can give out to our close family and friends or our neighbours, and that you can, as a church, be encouraging your people to do as well. So we have Christmas booklets. So these are small booklets that they're just, you know, very light, maybe 16, 20 pages perhaps. And they explain the gospel in a variety of different ways, or a tract, so a small folded tract that you can put in your Christmas cards to explain the gospel to your friends and family, or when you're giving them out more widely in the community. So those little booklets are available from 25p each, or the tracts from just 6p each. The new one this year, which is by Roger, who's coming on shortly, is called Peace on Earth with a question mark. And again, a clear gospel message for people at this time of year. We do sell Christmas cards. We don't tend to sell cards throughout the year, but for Christmas, we want to encourage people to be sending something that reflects what the season's all about. You know, you might like a card with a robin on it, but are we really pointing people to Jesus? We want people to remember what the real meaning of the season is. And so inside all of the Christmas cards that we sell, there is a verse of scripture, and all of these can fit the tracts inside. Again, we select cards which will enable you to be more gospel minded with what you're doing. So you get to choose one design, and there's 10 in a pack, or you can mix and match 2 packs for £5, which does make it quite affordable. In terms of reaching out to your family and friends, I've priced this up for you, so you don't need to worry about it. If you buy 2 packs of cards and some tracts and some stamps, you can be sending a card with a tract to your family and friends who don't live locally, so a bit further afield, for under £1. So you're sending them not just a greeting, but you're sending them the gospel as well for under £1. So that's something good to consider. We've put together this amazing bundle. It's over £100 off. And this is basically everything you need to get started in reaching out. So as an individual or as a church, this is a great place to start. So it's got 16 children's books, different, eight different books. So again, if you've got many grandchildren, or you've got, a selection of families that you want to give to, you're not duplicating. We've got 18 gospel giveaway books. So that, again, if there's somebody you've got in mind to give away a book to, then that'd be great. And 200 Christmas tracts and booklets, which again, you can put in your cards, you can give out to your care homes or to your key workers. It's a great starting point for a church or an individual for this. And it also contains 10 life magazines, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So yeah, just £35 for all those resources, £100 off the price. Now we're going to speak to Roger. So Roger is an evangelist and he's an author. He writes many tracts and books which point people to Jesus. So we're going to talk to Roger about the use of tracts and booklets to reach people.
Yeah, well, it's really good to be here. I'm actually in the Cotswolds at the moment doing a mission with a number of churches involved with the Cotswold Gospel Partnership. But it's great to be with you. And I have to say, I love that design of the emotions of Christmas. I think that's really good. I wish whoever designed that would design my tracts, just a hint to the 10 of those people. Anyway, we'll come on to these pictures in a moment. I love tracts because I just feel it's the easiest tool for me to get into conversation with people about the Lord Jesus Christ. And I carry with me, some of you have seen this before, this tract wallet. Lots of tracts in there and in there and in there and there and etc. It goes with me all the time. And when I'm talking to people, I'll just nose in and try and find a suitable tract. I don't usually call it a tract. I call it a Christian leaflet, or sometimes a gospel leaflet, depending on whom I'm speaking with. But all the tracts that 10 of those publish are very faithful to the gospel. They explain how the Lord Jesus Christ died for sin, how he bodily rose from the dead, the need to repent, the need and the wonder of receiving forgiveness. They're very clear on the gospel. Whatever sort of place we start at, we eventually end up at the cross and the empty tomb. Some of you will have seen the Christmas, sorry, let's not jump the gun, the Queen tract. I actually wrote it, I think, about 4 years ago, and all that was left, everything was designed except the date of the Queen's death. I think on the very day she died, they were already being printed, and the next day they were out and about. Nearly 1/3 of these were distributed. It was wonderful. All Souls in Langham Place in London ordered 50,000, and they were going along the queues, lining up to see the Queen's coffin. Another group took down another 5,000. I went with a friend or two and took another 4,000. So 59,000 tracts were given out along the queue there. And do you know, as far as I could see, there was not one that was discarded. I've never known anything like it. And people were coming up and saying, please, can I have one for my sister, my mother, etc. One person, I'm a school teacher, can I have one for every person in the class? It was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And I think sometimes, I use tracts generally all the time, but sometimes there's something happening in society or some commemoration that makes it just a little bit easier to give away tracts. So for example, I know this isn't Christmas, but the Remembrance Day tract, it might be worth just getting some of those for your Remembrance Day services, or if you're going outside for something around I don't know, whatever you've got, a village cross or whatever it is, cenotaph, you might just think of giving out tracts there. But of course, eventually Christmas, it's a wonderful opportunity to give away Christmas tracts. And it's interesting, we usually have a coupon at the back that people can write in and ask for more information about becoming a Christian. We get about 3 of these through the post every week, but at Christmas, the number always increases. This one, Peace on Earth, of course, it's trying to reflect what's happening in Ukraine and where is peace on earth. It was promised. Anyway, I'm sure you can get hold of copies and seek to give them away. I'll come on to some more commemorative ones, but these pictures, when lockdown began, I live in Grassington in the Yorkshire Dales. I have to get the word Yorkshire in just to sort of raise the level of sophistication of our webinar. But I live in Grassington. It's where the new series of All Creatures Great and Small is being filmed. So we're flooded with tourists who are all wanting to see James Herriot's house and this sort of thing, and go and have something to eat in the Drover's Arms, etc. But we have this village square, and I just use a picnic table. And as you can see, I had a tablecloth made, and that's the Yorkshire flag, of course, and this parasol. And I've made a slightly smarter free please take one now. But every day when it's not bad weather and when I'm around, I go and put this up first thing in the morning, and it stays normally till sunset. And well, you can see the sort of things that are here. Usually every day, a good number of leaflets and books. But actually, the most common thing of all is the Little Gideon New Testament. They're taken every day, and I just replenish the stock. I've had some marvelous conversations when I've actually been there, and some very significant conversations, actually. But I've got to say, most of the time, it's just there, standing alone, doing its work day by day. Now, I am convinced that some of you will have churches that are on a main street, or maybe even your house is on a main street, or a place where people are regularly passing or nosing around. Why not do something like this? I didn't start with a parasol. I eventually decided, right, I think I need that as well. But just a nice table and a good display of leaflets, booklets. And of course, when December comes, I'll have the children's Christmas books, the adult evangelistic books, as well as the Christmas tracts. So the tone will change, and I keep trying to change things. I know that there are people who regularly take something, but then we do get visitors as well. And I just feel it's scattering gospel seed. Ecclesiastes 11 verse 6, in the morning sow your seed, and in the evening do not withhold your hand, for you do not know which will prosper, either this or that, or whether both alike will be good. So you might just consider that. But I really would recommend not only us as individuals having tracts with us to seek to pass on, but having tract days. We call them go days. And just try and gather your church or others who know your church, who are Christians, who are zealous to reach the lost. Gather together, maybe a Saturday, it could be midweek as well. We normally work gathering at 10 o'clock. We have a cup of tea, we have some prayer, we have a little thought from the word, and then some instructions about how to do tract work. And then out we go into a town, into a pedestrian precinct, etc. And we seek to use tracts, not, handing them at arm's length distance, but seeking to engage people into conversation. And tracts are a wonderful key to open the door of conversation. So I really do recommend considering a go day or an outreach day like that. And of course, Christmas, it makes it a lot easier to give away a Christmas leaflet, but you can do this all year round. I was involved in one in Lancaster just very recently. We had a very blessed day. I'd love to tell you about some of the people we spoke with, but there isn't time there. Just consider that. And if you're interested, do get in touch with Beth, and I might just make a little video as to how I suggest tracts can be given away effectively. And they're cheap. You could even produce your own. And of course, you can always put a church sticker on the back of the tracts. There's always space for that as well. So I recommend that. Christmas is coming. So who comes to your house? Well, the milkman, possibly, the newspaper delivery boy, the electric meter reader, I don't know, might even be the bailiffs for all I know. But the people certainly the delivery man. Well, why not get a box of chocolates and a Christmas book or a tract, wrap it up and give it to him or her when they come at Christmas. Maybe you might even put a fiver in. If you're down south, that probably needs to be £10. But anyway, that's up to you. And it's quite funny because I'm working in the south at the moment. They all have drinks, round tables and canapes. I always think in the south they call them canapes. In the Midlands they call them nibbles, but in the north of England where I live we call them freebies. But anyway, it's yeah, try to be generous at Christmas time. A book, a tract with a box of chocolates, maybe a tip as well. Wrap it up and give it to your milkman, the delivery man, etc. My delivery man, bless him, he's had so many tracts. He now says no, but this time when I offered him the Queen one, he said, oh, all right. And at least he took it. Who knows whether he read it. In January, it's 250 years since Amazing Grace was written. And so there's it's a republished tract on the life of John Newton and William Wilberforce, who of course came from Yorkshire. And their testimonies are in there. Just a suitable one that you might just have a service in January commemorating that hymn and the lives of Wilberforce and John Newton. I don't know whether you've seen this one. It's quite new. It's written by a guy who's now working in Switzerland and who said it. And it's just the last words of famous musicians, Freddie Mercury, Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, etc. Very powerful and very nicely designed track. I think it's ideal for sort of older teenagers and people in their early 20s. And then I did a tract a long, long time ago called Key to Life, based on the woman at the well in John's Gospel. And it's been translated into numerous languages, Chinese and Russian and Armenian, all sorts of languages. But it is in, I know you can all translate that anyway. So just in case you can't, Key to Life. Yes, you didn't know I was fluent in Ukrainian, did you? Anyway, this is a Ukrainian tract. And I'm finding I'm constantly giving these away, just meeting Ukrainian people. Oh, I've got something for you. And they're so delighted to receive it. So you might just get in touch with 10 of those and ask about the tracks in different languages. We are, as we heard earlier, in such a multicultural society. So always carry some tracks with you. But if you can enthuse your church, perhaps have a tract stall at the back of the church so that people are regularly encouraged to take some and distribute them. Maybe at the prayer meeting, ask people if they've had any significant conversations through the work of the tracts and the books. And yes, a go day, an outreach day, maybe once a month. In fact, you could do it in your town one month and maybe go to a nearby place where there isn't evangelistic witness another month. Just one last thought, just on carol service. This might sound very strange. I know I take Andy's point that very often we get people in at Christmas and we don't see them again. Nevertheless, we are able to share the gospel with them, even if it is just once a year. So I live in Upper Wharfdale. It's beautiful, but it's very, very rural. There's a church just about 2 or 3 miles further up the dale from me, in a village called Hubberholme. You all know that's where J.B. Priestley's ashes are scattered. Yes, all right, so you know that. And of course, if you are watching All Creatures Great and Small, it's where James Herriot gets married in that church in Hubberholme, okay? Now, they annually have a carol service and they pack the church out. Well, that is amazing because there are no houses in Hubberholme. There's a pub and there's a church, but there are no houses, but they pack it out. And the unique factor is that they always do it the Sunday after Christmas, which of course this year will be New Year's Day 2023. And people come at 6:30, they have mince pies, they have coffee, but they pack it out. Now, I wish they preached the gospel. They don't, but it's an interesting thought on New Year's Day 2023 to have a final carol service to usher in the new year. One last evangelistic opportunity at the end of Christmas.
Thanks, Roger. That's fantastic. We are running.
Can I just say, sorry, the tract is already written for the King's coronation. Great. It's not designed yet, but it is written, so be aware of that. Sorry.
We'll look forward to seeing it when it's in its fully fledged form. Bethan, we're running out just a little bit behind. If you need to shoot on, please feel free to. We will get to your questions in just a couple of minutes. We just want to take a moment to look at the Life magazine, which is one of our evangelistic resources that we are very keen on. Bethan, you're the editor, you're the person, you're the brain behind it. Who's it written for? What's the big idea?
So the idea is that this magazine is written for everybody. So you could get copies of these, and I give out copies of these to everybody who lives on my street. And I know that within the magazine, there will be something that everybody can read. So it is really broad in terms of who it's trying to reach. But within that, there is always gospel content. So I would say like the gospel is kind of scattered throughout the magazine. So there are some evangelistic tracts that have been converted into articles. There are articles that have been written evangelistically to go in there as well. And then we also have testimonies. So in this recent edition, which has just come out in the last week or two, we have a guy called Dave Merrington, and he was a professional football player and more recently was a commentator for the football down in the south. And so he shares his testimony about how he was converted and what's happened in his life since. And so it's a really interesting way for people to hear about Christians and how people are saved. And yeah, this resource is something that we produce specifically for people to give out evangelistically. So whether that is delivering to your neighbours or to give out and to leave in your hairdressers or in the dentist or something like that, or even just to hand on to a friend. So some of the articles in there are not specifically Christian. So a marble slice recipe, we're not getting the gospel in there. But if you can say, oh, there's a really lovely recipe in this magazine, you might want to have a look at it. And in this particular issue as well, we've got a Christmas dinner for under £20, a 4-course Christmas dinner for under £20. And we've also got some interaction with Christians Against Poverty as well, about how they can be helping people. So it really is something for everybody. And we do hope that people will use this. And Tim's going to talk about how you might be able to distribute this more widely.
Yeah, thanks. So as you can see on the screen, you can get it from 25 pence each if you're just buying them. And that gets you the vanilla version of it with a blank contact box in the back that you could get an ink stamp for or stick a sticker on or something like that. But if you're buying larger numbers, 2, 3, 4, 5,000, we can overprint them for you. Get your kind of church service or your carol service or some of the stuff that you run just normally printed up in that space on the back. And if you have a mind to then do that and get it out, we can partner with Royal Mail and they'll post it to each household in the area. We have to go by their postal sectors, what they called. So often it's kind of 4,000 or 5,000 homes at a time. So that may make it a little bit more expensive than what we can do off our own backs. But as a church or as a group of churches, it would be a great way of getting the Life magazine to many, many, many people very quickly and quite cost effectively at the same time. It's much more substantial than just a tract. And so I don't think people would throw it away just quite as quickly. And because it has that mix of content, I think folks might go, oh, Dave Merrington. Oh, yeah, I remember seeing him on Match of the Day. And before long, they're reading something with a little gospel edge to it. It would also be a great thing to give out with something else, something that's been mentioned 2 or 3 times already this morning. Maybe make the marble slice recipe. Make a little pack of them, stick it in a little tub, a little box. Oh, here's a little gift for you, and oh, the recipe's in this. Thought you might like that as well. Just the sort of thing that you could pass on to friends or to families. We're very keen that this isn't just a one and done kind of time of year, aren't we? If you're planning Christmas evangelism, if you're planning to get people reading over Advent, do be thinking about perhaps giving gifts, but do also be thinking about then follow up. If you want something along the lines of a gospel or something that'll maybe that's coming from a slightly different angle, maybe you have a friend that you've been chatting to for a year and they've mentioned that they're agnostic. John Gemmell and Andrew Sachs's book is brilliant and it's funny and witty and is really good at kind of deconstructing what that means and what that is. Maybe you know someone who just loves reading little short biographies, and life stories will just delight them, because it's full of stories of people from all through different circumstances. If you're looking for Gospels to give kind of as follow-up, we have a range of them. You can get Gospels from 20 pence, but again, that's the NLT. There's other versions and other covers available. New Testaments from 88 pence. That's the NIV one there. Again, other covers, other versions available. And the cheapest Bibles that we have is the ESV Economy Bible there. And it's only £1.49 if you're buying it in a few of a bulk. And you could give that out and around, maybe to those who you get chatting to who are more interested. And then for follow-up, this was kind of what I was alluding to. It may be that you want to plan in what you're going to do in the new year to pull on people who maybe have shown interest from your carol services and your tract giving. The Word One-to-One is a great way to read the Bible with somebody else. It's going through John's Gospel, and basically the books are just John's Gospel, but broken down into much shorter sections so that it's not too intimidating for folks, and with some questions kind of scattered throughout. Or there's the Christianity Explored material, which is excellent, and they've recently released a thing called Hope Explored, which is I think it's only 4 weeks. It's much shorter, so that people don't feel like they're signing their life away to a course. It's a nice short thing with a short time. It's only 3 weeks. Thanks, Liz. It's a nice short thing so that people feel like they're not signing up for too long. Right. We're only 5 minutes late, which is great, because now we can get on to some of the questions that we have.
Somebody has asked a question, which I spotted in the chat, which was specifically to Roger. Where did you get your little tract wallet from, Roger? I know we don't sell them at 10 of those, but could you share where you get yours from?
Well, yes, it's from a leather shop in Ilkley. But it's if you go on the web, it's a company called Ashwood, and they're based in Birmingham. But the trouble is, you've got scores and scores of different size wallets, and this one is just perfect for the tracks. If you send a message to Bethan, she can forward it on to me, and I can give you more details. Or I could even go to the leather shop in Ilkley and get you one. But they're not cheap, but they are very good.
Thanks, Roger. Tim, have we got any more questions that you've spotted?
Yeah, quite a number of questions here. One that I saw early on, maybe would be a good one for yourself or for Caroline. There are some brilliant books for 3 to 7 year olds. What would you recommend for an outreach group for 7 to 11s?
Caroline, do you have any thoughts on this?
The activity books, like the ones that are kind of half story, half activity book, they normally have like the little flash down the middle, so it's like coloured picture at the bottom and black and white at the top. We've been giving those out at messy churches and then keeping any leftovers to make a bookstore with at Christmas, and we give those out to that age range. Sometimes we wrap them up so they look like a Christmas present and kind of colour code it by what colour wrapping paper we use, so we know that's for the 7 to 11 age group. But yeah, I'd go for those.
Yeah, I agree for that age group. Obviously you're a little bit past storybooks, and if you don't really know if they're from a Christian household as well, and you don't know if a slightly longer book would be read, an activity book is great because it manages to cover some activities, but also the gospel is weaved through as well.
Great. Bethan, another good one for you. There are 2 tracing storybooks. Can you please explain the difference?
I think that must be Tracing Glory. So this one that I held up, the green one, is just the craft activities. So it's the instructions and the templates to do the craft activities to make the 25 ornaments. So this doesn't contain the actual the devotions. So it's slightly smaller. It's on the back of there, so you can see that. The red one is the actual devotions. So within that, there's a Bible reading, there's an explanation, there's some discussion questions. So you could just have the activity books, but without the explanations, you might struggle a little bit. Or you could just have the devotions. It depends. So the devotions will work for any kind of family age. And if you're not crafty, don't think, oh, I'm gonna have to make all those ornaments. You don't have to do that. So it's just a great resource for anyone really. And like I said before, toddler groups, you might want to consider having both the devotions and the activities as a year-round activity, because it does go from creation all the way through to Jesus. So you could cover that in a year really.
Great, thanks, Bethan. Roger, are there any large print tracts suitable for care homes?
I don't know the answer to that. We used to do The Lord is My Shepherd with a question mark at the end of that's the title. We used to do that in large print, but I don't know whether it's still available or not. Other than that, I think the answer probably is no. I'm really sorry. So you could put a Christmas card, a tract, and a magnifying glass in each envelope.
You could, although I suppose my answer to that would be, well, maybe the resident can't read the tract on their own, but then they'll ask some of their friends, their family, or their staff workers to read it to them, and you never know, you might get a 2-for-1 hit.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. The other thing is, you can photocopy and enlarge, couldn't you, if it's not a huge number?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Roger. Yes, I'm interested in the Advent books mentioned, specifically Advent readings book with child appropriate accompaniment. Are there any options for that? Bethan, perhaps?
I was just going to say, I would have thought Tracing Glory might meet that.
Yeah, so not the adult Advent things, but more the family Advent resources that we have.
Yeah, so Tracing Glory is a family resource, unless I'm misunderstanding the question.
Yeah, no, I think you are. I think you're getting the right end of it.
But I love that. I love the J.C. Ryle devotional book you've done for this year. It's attractive, and no, I think it's well done.
Yeah, and I think that the J.C. Ryle one's a particularly good answer to the next question, which is cost is a factor when you're buying for 150 or 200 adults. What's the best option? Those Advent devotional books are only £1 each if you're buying 100. So that J.C. Ryle Coming of the King is a great option for that if cost is an issue. But I think we've had a good time. Thank you. Andy's had to slip on, but our thanks to Caroline and to Roger for joining us. It's been such a good opportunity to pilfer your brains and see what you're doing in your areas, and hopefully you guys have some good ideas for how to reach out in the coming days and weeks.
So thank you all so much. We do appreciate you taking the time, and we hope that you feel more equipped now for your planning for Christmas, and that Jesus would be proclaimed in all of your towns and places.